Today we're making bread from scratch in my kitchen. I hear people say it all the time, I can't cook, but everyone can cook, you just need to practice. I learned how to make bread over 20 years ago while working in a restaurant, and I've been making bread at home ever since. Today we're going to go over bread step by step, noting some common mistakes along the way, what to look out for at each step. We're going to go over proofing the yeast, kneading the dough, and allowing the bread to get a proper rise. First, we're going to proof our yeast. So I set the kettle on about 5 to 10 minutes ago so that the water is hot to the touch, but not burning. If your water is too hot, it will burn and kill the yeast. If your water is too cold, it won't activate the yeast at all. So now we're going to take our yeast and our sugar. So the yeast uses the sugar to create CO2 bubbles, and those bubbles are what causes the bread to rise. So properly foamed yeast should look like this. Take a look. This process is called scalding the milk. We're going to put 2 cups of milk into the saucepan, 1/4 cup butter, 1/4 cup sugar, and a dash of salt, and stir that in until it's nice and combined. Our butter is melted, so we're going to pull this right off the heat and add 2 cups of cold water to cool it down. This way we won't have any problems with burning our yeast. So now we're going to start adding the flour as we stir. We're going to take careful consideration here. You may not need all of the flour. It depends on temperatures and humidities and all sorts of different things. So we're just going to keep stirring until we start seeing it look like a dough. The perfect amount of water to flour will create what's called a gluten window. We're going to have a nice velvety dough that's soft to the touch but not sticky. You're going to want to be able to stick your finger into it and not have it come out super sticky covered in dough. This gluten window is the perfect amount of flour to water where the yeast can cause it to rise in the best circumstances. It looks like we're starting to get a dough together here. Now that we have the beginnings of a dough, I'm going to dump it right onto my breadboard and start kneading the flour into the dough. This will get me a better mixture with less lumps, and it'll also allow me to keep an eye out on how dry or sticky the dough is. So the proper kneading procedure here is very simple. You're just going to quarter turn, push in, quarter turn, push in. There's no measurement here, but an okay amount just to cover your dough, because all you're doing now is covering it in that oil, getting a nice sheen on it, avoiding it getting dry here. And I've taken the liberty to pre-wet the towel so it's nice and damp, and we're just going to cover it like so. Again, avoiding it being dry, and we're going to let it sit until it's risen 3 times the size. Okay, so it's been an hour and our dough has risen really nicely. So we're going to reveal the dough here and do a nice punch down of the dough. We're peeling it away from the edges. It's nice and soft. It's not sticky at all, so I think we're ready to go. We're just going to oil the pan a little bit to prevent sticking. So just a touch of oil, and we're just going to wipe it around using a cloth or paper towel to make sure that there's a barrier to prevent sticking. Okay, so let's cut the dough. So you just take a good generous chunk off there. We're going to weigh it out. So if you kind of watch me here, you're going to just flatten out the dough, have a nice top. You're going to fold it under, and you're going to just roll it gently in your hands. I'm not grabbing it, I'm just kind of keeping it still. This will create a nice flat bottom, no air bubbles in your dough. So it's been just about 30 minutes. We're going to preheat the oven to 400 degrees and bake for 15 to 20 minutes once it's preheated. So we have our finished product here, turned out beautifully. It has a nice golden brown color, it rose really well. Just to recap, we're going to make sure that our water is not too hot or too cold in the beginning to let that yeast really get a good start. We're going to want to make sure we watch out for sticky dough and knead it a little bit more if necessary. Watch out for over kneading the dough. We don't really want to have dry dough in the end. And those couple of little points will bring us to having a really nice finished product. Just remember, cooking takes practice. So just have fun, try new things, and if it doesn't work out, feed it to the birds and try again.